Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Unfortunately, the weather has taken a bit of a turn in Japan. It's starting, well, today seems to be a bit gloomy, a bit rainy. So unfortunately that will affect the lighting on the video, but there's some really good news. We have just hit 3,000 subscribers. And that may not sound like a lot, but you've got to consider that this channel started from nothing, and 3,000 subscribers is, to me, a huge amount of people, and I really do appreciate everyone that's been watching and subscribing. But more importantly, that does mean I get to have my milestone cookie that I've been waiting for quite a while now. So I'll have to do a video on that when I go out and purchase our celebratory cookie in another episode. So of course we'll be getting on with work on Project BedBug, but since the last episode I have been busy and I have managed to get some other bits rattled off. So I've managed to spend some time with this front wing. If you remember, well, ages ago we deleted the horn grille and also the US Spec style indicators. So that was all previously done, and what I needed to do was sand it back. It collected quite a lot of surface rust, sand it back, and then I gave it some coats of that special acrylic primer. And then on top of that, I've actually started doing the bodywork. And as you can see, it looks like a map of the world. It is covered with low spots and high spots all over this. And this will give you an idea just how bad this wing was. It's bad. To be honest, in an ideal world, you just go out and put a new wing on there. But this project is not about that. I'm trying to save as much as I can. And although it's sanded back and it has its high spots and low spots, it really isn't that far away from just getting a thin coat of filler over the top, rubbed back and primed. So while the wing was off, I had a chance to get on with this quarter panel, and all I'd done prior to that was do the repair work on them. We added a crotch cooler, and I did try and straighten out this area here. It was bad. At some point in its life, it'd been involved in quite a large accident and completely rippled this panel, but I've got it as straight as I can. And where I'd left it, it did have a bit of surface rust, so I've sanded it back the best I can. And then what I've done is I've treated it with a bit of gun black. If you remember, that's like a rust treatment primer. I've keyed that up, then I've gone over the top with the resin primer, and then on top of that, I've then gone over the top with the fiberglass just to straighten out the larger areas that are dented and also around where it was welded. And then after that was sanded back, I applied some filler. Phew, that's a lot of work. And another thing I did while it was in bare metal, I just ran a weld over this edge here, and it's for good reason. So on Beetles at the front quarter panel, you can see it curves round underneath this scuttle panel, and the scuttle panel actually curves round as well, and that leaves two return edges on the underside, which are factory spot welded together. And over time, this area does seem to shift and fatigue, and that's absolutely fine. It can do whatever it wants. That's no big deal. But if you're body working and prepping this area, this part here is quite important. So when I used to do Beetles, I would do nothing more than key this area up and get it ready for paint, prime it, paint it, etc. But what you can find is this area here where those two panels are, they do tend to open out a bit over time, and especially when you get an old car like this, you end up with a gap here. So if you were to use a body filler, then prime and paint it, there is a chance that this will actually crack out. And I've seen this many times. I've done it myself. And yeah, it's annoying. Once it starts cracking out, you then have to do this area again. So what I do nowadays, although it's not totally factory, is I run a weld down here, then I grind it back, and then I do my repairs on top. And hopefully this kind of approach does stop it cracking out. So what I need to do on this side is pretty much the same as the other side. I need to strip it down, get everything keyed up, and get all this surface rust off there. Then I can treat it with that special resin primer. But before I get into taking that other side apart, there's something I want to address, and that's this steering arm. As you know, that we put a narrowed and lowered custom beam on the front of BedBug, and at the moment it's sitting in its lowest position, and at its lowest position you can see this steering arm here is very, very close to the body. So what I was going to do is just clearance this area here. Although this car will never run this low, it's just in case, and having a little bit of extra clearance just here is a nice thing. So if you're using drop spindles, this area here becomes less of a problem because of the steering gear stays in the same place and you are just moving the stub axle. Another thing you can do is this area here where the track rod end goes in is a tapered, I don't know if you can see that, but this is actually tapered and it sits in a hole like this. And what you can do is you can drill these out and you can buy a special collar that you install underneath, and then you can mount this track rod end underneath here, which gives you more clearance too. So sometimes if you find yourself doing jobs like this one, simple is best. And you can see now I've got the clearance, and this was easily done. What I did is where this part here was further on down here, I just made an incision and made a couple more incisions just here and here, just to bend it round, just pull it back out of the way. And then it was a case of just making an incision up here, bending that piece, and then just making a little infill panel. So I'm now happy that I've got my clearance. All I need to do now is weld all this up and grind it back. So there we go, that's all welded into place and I've ground down the welds. And what I'll do probably at a later date is a bit of seam sealing and maybe some stone guard or some metal paint around the underside of the wheel arches. But for the time being, that's done. So with this front quarter panel, I welded up this area up here and I've ground it back. I've then ran a flap wheel over the whole panel just to remove any surface rust. And then what I've done is I've hit it with a DA with quite a coarse grit on it. So pretty much the same story with this front wing. I've just gone over it with a flap wheel just to remove any of the surface rust, and then I've gone over the whole lot with a DA with quite a coarse grit on. I did have to do a tiny little weld down here, just on this corner, just down here. You can see that I put a weld, and I'd already done a little section here. I'd obviously forgotten to weld this area up, so I've done that. Also, just on the back here, there's a tiny bit of rust. It's not bad enough for me to cut out and repair, so I've just put a bit of rust treatment on there. And then there was just a little crack appearing just on this edge, and I've just welded that up and ground it back. So what I need to do now is put the resin primer on the front quarter panel and the wing. Both the wing and this quarter panel have been thoroughly degreased, so I'm just going to chuck it on. So that's the resin primer applied to the front quarter panel and also this front wing. And what I've done is I've just let it cure overnight. What I need to do now is key up the areas, like these areas here where you can see are badly dented and there's some repairs. And then what I can do is apply the fiberglass. So that's the fiberglass applied to the front quarter panel and also the front wing. And what I've done is I've been using a block and a DA sander with an 80 grit just to take it down a bit, ready for the coat of filler. And while I was waiting for that fiberglass to go off, it gave me a little bit of extra time to put another coat of filler on this quarter panel. So recently, as you know, I've been having a bit of a battle with the filler with this intense heat we're having in Japan. But today it was a completely different story. Although it was a lot cooler, the humidity levels were sky high. And this is a problem for the filler as it's taken ages to go off. So with the fiberglass and the body filler that I'd applied on this quarter and also this front wing just taking ages to go off, the humidity levels are quite high. I mean, it's not the end of the world as it still is quite soft. I was able to use quite a coarse grit on the block just to shape these areas. But of course I can't go any further than that until it's fully cured. So it's been a bit of a waiting game with the filler, but that did mean I got round to doing a bit more on this side here. You can also see that this wing has changed colour a little bit. It looked like the map of the world, and now it only looks like half the map of the world. I did have some spray left in the gun when I was putting the resin primer on the other side, so I did give this another coat and I've just blocked it down. This is actually now ready for the really fine filler to go over the top of this area and block down, and then it's ready for primer. And it's the same story with this quarter panel. And on this side, once this filler is completely dry, I'm going to block it down with something like a 120, and then I'm going to refill the imperfections on this panel. And it's pretty much the same story with the wing. I'm going to guide coat it and I'm going to knock it back with the block. Pick up any of the imperfections, any of the bad ones, I'll obviously use body filler, and then I can, yet again, as the other side, put the fine filler over the top of these areas. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I do congratulate you guys for watching all the way to the end. Yet another sanding prep work video. Unfortunately, with jobs like this, there is a lot of that. And these kind of small details, like getting the filler work just right before the primer goes on, is super important. And what I'll do at the end of this episode, as usual, I'll leave a little bit of Japanese culture just in case you're interested. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers!
Good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite.
Bye.
Need
こそ勇者であります。イエーイ。